In this video, I'm going to break down the story and secrets behind the album covers that the band 21 Pilots have used across their discography, from their first release to their latest. This is an updated version of a previous video, but we have had more albums since then, and we're also going to talk about the alternative covers and the single artwork that I didn't mention in that video. The band's first album was named after the band. This self-titled album was created by artist John Redstadt. The album cover seemingly represents the process of being creative, with the body lying on the bed as the colours are flowing out of the figure's head, representing the creative thoughts that are pouring out on the floor below. The ceiling fan at the top of the cover is also shown on the cover art for the Johnny Boy EP. The band's second album is called Regional at Best. The cover shows the lead singer Tyler Joseph's younger brother Zach playing at a Little League baseball game. The cover can be seen as having a double meaning, the first one being that of youth and nostalgia, which links with the themes of many of the tracks on the album, particularly House of Gold and Slowtown. There is also a fan theory that the logo that appears on the cover for the first time on this album is actually inspired by the kids in the background. However, this is likely just a coincidence. The other meaning of the cover links with the name of the album itself. The kids playing Little League Baseball probably aren't going to become professional players, and if they do, will be regional at best. The band probably thought this about themselves at the time they made this album. Ironically, this would be the last album that the band releases before being signed to their label, Fueled by Ramming, so the band wouldn't stay regional for very long. Vessel is the band's next album, and it has a cover that features the grandfathers of the two band members. The reason why the album was called Vessel is explained by Tyler in this fan interview.
How does that relate to the album, in terms of theme or subject matter?
The album's called Vessel, and the whole point is a vessel carries something that's important, but the outward shell of a vessel isn't necessarily that important. The theory behind that is that our bodies are going to die, and we're going to wither away and get old. But what we have inside of us is much more important than that. Just like the meaning of a song or the message of a song is the thing that hopefully will live on. So Josh and I know that we're going to get to be as old as our grandfathers, and hopefully we get to play music when we're that old, but we wanted to commemorate them.
I also think that it's important to mention that the album cover does have a striking resemblance to the band's most recent cover, Breach, which features both the band members stood next to each other. Not too different from the cover we see here 12 years prior, but more on that connection later. This album also has different art in Japan. I think the reason for this was likely pressure from the label, who I imagine would think it's best to show the band off to a new market as this, rather than the cover everyone else got, as you don't want there to be any confusion about who the band is, with this being their first album under this label. But that's just my theory for why Japan got a regional version of the album cover when no one else did. There was an exclusive Australian EP released in 2014 called Quiet is Violent, featuring a kangaroo wearing one of the band's ski masks, and half of these songs are also seen as bonus tracks on that previously mentioned Japanese version of Vessel, and was likely created similarly as a way to get the newly labelled band in front of a new audience in new markets. Vessel also got a second album cover in its 10th anniversary release. This cover has a silhouette of the two grandfathers with a silver background. This redesign for the anniversary vinyl is fitting, as both of the grandfathers had passed away by this point. The vinyl also has blue and red accent colours on the side, referencing the logo used at this time by the band. Something else that references the logo used by the band at this time is the Vessel commentary album, that also uses the same blue and red accent colour on the darker lower part of the cover, almost symbolising this behind the scenes look at the album that you would expect from an album with commentary included. Now, from this point on, the albums do get more complicated, as at this stage the albums start telling a story of a fictional city called Dima. With this comes hidden encrypted messages, so I'll try my best to point them out and explain them. Most of this happens in the album Trench, but some of these cryptic messages do get their start in the band's next album, Blurryface. This next album, Blurryface, has a cover that has 9 uniquely patterned dots on it, each of them representing the song on the album that goes along with its unique pattern. These are Heavy Dirty Soul, Tearing My Heart, Ride, Polarize, Doubt, Lame Boy, Fairly Local, Stressed Out, and Goner. However, not every song on the album gets one of these dots on the cover. However, they still get a pattern made for them that can be seen on the audio versions on YouTube. The ones that are left out of the main 9 are The Judge, We Don't Believe What's on TV, Message Man, Hometown, and Not Today. Brandon Reich was the main art designer for Blurryface, and in 2017 he released a statement explaining his process of making the cover that I will link below. He goes on to explain in this design document how he updated the band's logo so it could be typed out by fans in their communities. The logo itself is also hidden in the cover, using the 2 red dots that just so happen to be the dots that represent the 2 most popular tracks on the album, that being Stressed Out and Ride. The cover also has a striking resemblance to the fictional city of Dima that the band writes of in the next album. For Record Store Day 2016, the band released a promotional record. This cover uses the colours that had been used during the rest of the Blurryface era. This cover was made specifically for Disco Day, which is just French for Record Store Day, hence the Eiffel Tower. There was also a live version of this album made on vinyl, with the cover being a photo from a live performance on this tour. The live show that makes up this live album is one at the Fox Theatre in Oakland, California, so it's likely a photo from that specific performance. The next album by the band is Trench, which came out in 2018. The main focus here on this album is that of the vulture, which is referenced in the song Levitate. This is also the first album cover to feature an animal on it, since the Quiet is Violent EP in 2014. In this point in the video, I have to explain the story that the albums Trench and Scaled and Icy tell, and to a lesser extent Blurryface. The albums tell the story of a fictional city called Dima. Dima and its storyline have been drip-fed to fans over the span of years, from lyrics in songs to music videos, live shows and merch. The whole story would cover a video of its own, so I'm only going to go through the bits of information here that are required to understand the secrets in their album covers. The symbols on this Trench album cover can be seen under the track list. The most important here are the double bars logo, the East is Up symbol, and the FPE symbol. The double bar logo is meant to represent the fact that in the story of the album, the characters are trying to leave Trench, hence the extra lines that are added protection to the logo as well. This added protection being much like the yellow tape that is added onto the characters in the storyline. The FPE symbol is important as well, as it changes meaning based on what album it's seen in. For example, on Blurryface, FPE means few, the proud, and the emotional, and it is said during the song Fairly Local.
Look what I'm picking the people with the vote. It's a few, the proud, and the emotional. Yo, you.
In the context of Trench, it means failed perimeter escape, and is a symbol of the failed escapes that the people of Dima try to do to escape the city. During the time of the album's announcement, and the releasing of singles for the album, the track list on the front of the cover had yet to be shown off fully, and so songs that hadn't been seen yet were covered up with yellow tape. Tape covering parts of the album art would be used to build more hype for the future album Clancy, but again, more on that later. The album also got a special triple EP vinyl bundle that came with its own exclusive cover, also featuring the vulture next to Josh's drum kit. I also can't help but feel like the background resembles the music video to Ride, but I guess that they're both just forests. During the pandemic in 2020, the band released the song Level of Concern. The cover art for this features a USB stick, like the one that is shown in the music video, which, as a crazy side note, as of writing this video, is currently missing. The USB drive was stolen from the Fan Premiere exhibit, which is a fan exhibit that the band has been doing at their live shows. And on the 25th of October, the USB drive was just taken. This isn't even the first time something has been stolen from a 21 Pilots show this year. What with a drum having been taken from a show in Manchester in May, with the audio clip of the drum being taken being featured in the 2025 Breach track, Centre Mass. That drum was returned, but as of now, the Level of Concern memory stick could be anywhere. The band even put out a statement saying that the item has significant meaning for them, and that it can be returned to Warner Music Group with no questions asked. Before we move on to the next cover, I need to briefly touch on who the character of Clancy is in the world of Trench. In the fictional city of Dima, there are people who are in charge of the city, and there are people who want to escape. By the end of Trench, it seems like they have made it out, including Clancy, the character we follow throughout this story. However, this was put into question with the release of the band's next album, Scaled and Icy. It didn't take long for fans to realise that the name of the album is an anagram, and when the letters are reshuffled, it spells out Clancy is dead. However, I'm not here to talk about the story yet. I'm here to talk about the cover, and it just so happens that Clancy is hidden elsewhere on the album cover. And this is where things get a bit crazy, so bear with me. On the full image of the cover, we can see the word destroy hidden above the wing of Trash the Dragon. As a side note, this is what Tyler has called him. Underneath the text destroy is what looks like the Google Street View for a street in the band's home city, Ohio, called, get this, Clancy Way. When you put this together, you get the message, destroy Clancy. Was this the dragon's purpose? Was he made to hunt down Clancy? Thanks to Brandon Reich, the creator of this album cover, we know that the original version of the dragon is from a 19th century children's book illustration by Walter Crane. This cover is also a real visual departure, with it being far more colourful of an album cover than we have seen from the band up to this point. This is explained by Tyler in an interview at the time of the album's release, where he said, "That colour is supposed to represent the unleashing of an imagination, you know. I have this theory that even if you're confined to one small room, if you were to focus on one singular detail of that room, that detail can then come to life. I actually have this little dragon totem figure that I have been staring at, and my theory is that if I can get to a place where I'm looking at him, and I'm creating something, and all of a sudden he can grow and fly around the room, that's where I am, and I can be transported into a completely different place. It really is the power of creativity and the power of imagination and ultimately the power of music." In this context, I do think that the cover has some thematic similarities with the original self-titled album art. This is also the first time that the logo that the band uses has changed since the use of the original a decade prior. But the symbol in the corner is familiar, as it has a resemblance to the East Is Up symbol from the Trench album. It's actually a Greek symbol called Psi, and it is the 23rd letter in the Greek alphabet. This was likely chosen just so, like with the previous logo, fans could still type it out in their communities using just a regular keyboard. It also represents Psi, which is a traditional Okinawan weapon. Interestingly, that Psi is also an abbreviation of the album's name itself, Scaled and Icy. The band also has a cover for the Scaled and Icy live album performance. It is just a picture of one of the sets that was used during the live stream. Some interesting things to note, however, are the graffiti version of the original album cover. On the right, we also see what looks like the beginning of Mulberry Street, a song on the album. We also see an outline of what looks like Ned, a character seen in a few of their music videos, but first seen in Trench. And finally, we see FPE return, this time standing for food, petrol, etc. This is the second time that we see FPE mentioned on the band's album art, the last one being the failed perimeter escape logo seen on the Trench cover. But the FPE and its changing meaning can be found everywhere over the band's discography. In Blurryface, the line "the few, the proud, the emotional" is sung in the song Fairly Local.
Look what they're picking the people with the vote. It's a few, the proud and the emotional. Yo, you.
This is then repeated in the track Paladin Strait, a whole 3 albums later.
So few, so proud, so emotional. Hello, Clancy.
FPE is also referenced in the Chlorine, where it means fine pool equipment. In the music video for Oldest Station, Tyler can be seen wearing the failed perimeter escape badge, showing that he's one of the citizens that has tried to escape the city of Dima. And finally, the fan pre-show exhibit that the band puts out for their live shows is called the Fan Premiere Exhibit, which brings the total number of unique FPE meanings up to 6. And finally, for this era of the band, the MTV Unplugged live album art is pretty straightforward, and it's just a still from the performance. But the text used is the same font that we see Scaled and Icy. The next album from the band is Clancy, which was originally teased to fans as red tape showed up on advertisements around the world, as well as on the previously released album covers, gaining some red tape too. Well, all the covers minus the first two, which, existing before they got signed to the label, makes sense why they were not included. The cover art for Clancy is a big departure for the band, being the first album cover outside of the Japanese exclusive release version to feature the band members themselves. Brandon Reich once again returned to work on the album art. The photo of Tyler and Josh were taken by photographer Ashley Osborne, who has worked with the band before. There was a lot of confusion when the album art was finally revealed as well. It looked wildly different from anything the band had put out before, and adding to this confusion was the fact that it was leaked early and so existed alongside seas of fake album cover art that had been made by fans during this time. As well, there was a lot of hype, what with the red tape being everywhere and the previous album covers for weeks at this point. Whilst different from what came before, the album art does live in the context of the Clancy album itself. The creator of the album art, Brandon Reich for example, liked a fan-made comment on Instagram that theorised that the cover was made to look like Clancy had made it himself, like a scrapbook. This very idea of the cover looking like it was from Clancy's scrapbook can clearly be seen in the digital remains version of the album, where the fire is literally replaced with Clancy's previously scrapbooked letters. Which brings me to the next question. Who is Clancy? Well, Clancy is a character played by Tyler Joseph, and Josh Dunn plays the character of the Torchbearer. These are the two characters that we see the band members play on the album cover, as well as at live shows and in some music videos. The fire in the background is reminiscent of various imagery that the band uses on their live shows and music videos too, as well as one of the Clancy promotional letters that was released before the album. One of these letters written by Clancy, called 02402 Moon 09, ends with the line, "I left embers of inspiration. I only hope whatever spark was left has grown to a torch, and together we create an inferno." With the character the Torchbearer himself also being on this cover, I think this is likely a reference to it. Also, the font used on the name Clancy for this album is also the same font used for the strip of fabric Clancy is wearing. This stylized N that we see in the name Clancy has a striking resemblance to the Dangerous Ben symbol. The Dangerous Ben symbol also gets a reference in the album on the track Overcompensate. This symbol was invented by the Nicholas Bourbaki group, a group of mathematicians. This is the same group who is mentioned in the track Morph on Trench.
Always try to stop me, that Nicholas Bourbaki. He's got no friends close, but those who know him most know he goes by Nico.
It is also this same exact group of mathematicians who also use the null sign, which 21 Pilots have used to style their name for years now. The fire on this album also has another secret. On the right, in the fire, we can see a hidden Blurryface. This is also the same one that is on the inside sleeve and CD of the original Blurryface album. The album cover for Breach seems like a continuation of the previous Clancy cover, with both band members dressed as the Torchbearer and Clancy, characters respectively. The jacket that is being handed over, however, looks like it is from the Trench era, yet it is covered in the red tape rather than the yellow tape that we would see with the album's promotional artwork. The yellow tape of Trench is used as symbols of the Banditos, whereas the red tape that we see here is the colour of the bishops in the lore of the album. The hair of Josh also seems to be a return to the style that we saw in the Blurryface album. As I mentioned for the Vessel album, we see both band members on this album stood in a similar position as their grandfathers on that one. The brighter part of the background, along with the jacket in the middle, make the album look like it might be a skull. Just as like with the previous album Clancy, Breach also got its own digital remains cover with its own unique cover art. The cover has the same red, but the two band members are replaced with a mysterious figure who could be Tyler in the middle. Just like the previous art, it's not a huge jump to say that this one also invokes the imagery of a skull somewhat. The figure also could be said to be resembling the East is Up symbol that we talked about in both the Trench album art and in Scaled and Icy, and according to this, the image may be from the Manchester show during the previous Clancy World Tour. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it. It's crazy to see what extra things have been added to the album covers and the meanings behind them since the last video. If you enjoyed this one, make sure to check out my other 21 Pilots videos. I also have a video going over the band that shot a music video in Zero Gravity. Thanks for watching.